The Falcons have added another piece to their secondary, so we're going to break down this move by Terry Fontenot and get to know the newest member of the no-fly zone starting to form in Atlanta. But Adam Schefter, the first one to report the news, saying Falcons signed former Seahawks and Bengals cornerback Trey Flowers to a one-year deal. Now, at this moment, I do not have the details of that contract and the exact specific amount given up to him, but I got to imagine there's not a lot of money and pretty low guarantees. Now, let's get some background information on Trey Flowers. He was a fifth-round pick by Seattle in 2018, coming out of Oklahoma State. He was a really big piece of that Cowboy defense back then for the Big 12. He played 15 games for the Benagls last season. Like I said, originally drafted by Seattle. He would eventually get waived by the Seahawks in 2021. The Benagls would pick him up in October, and he was a good piece of that defense for them that would go on and play in the Super Bowl. They re-signed him after 2021, so played 15 games with Cincinnati last season. He's got loads of experience in his career. 41 career starts in 6 seasons. He has always been a bit of a depth piece. Originally, he was a fifth-round draft pick, so the expectations were not a week 1 starter by any means. He eventually kind of found himself in that role as the season progressed in 2018, but he had a pretty good run with the Seattle Seahawks. Then they waive him ultimately after a couple of seasons, and the Bengals scoop him up, and now he finds himself down in Atlanta. Last season for the Bengals, 27 tackles, 1 interception, and 3 pass breakups. He did not start any games for the Bengals, but he did appear in 15 games. So, where does Trey Flowers slot in this Atlanta cornerback room? I'm not going to put him as one of my starters. A.J. Terrell and Jeff Okudah remain as my top 2 corners. Mike Hughes, I think, is going to go into camp as that CB3. Clark Phillips, the rookie 4th-round pick out of Utah, is going to be my nickel guy. So then I've got Trey Flowers joining, Armstrong and Hall and Alford with some other backups that are going to be competing to make that 53-man roster. So with this being said, I know it's not a blockbuster name, but hey, it is a name, so at least the Falcons did something in the offseason. It's way more fun when your team sign players versus don't sign players. So grade the Falcons defense for me. Just looking at the entire defense as a whole and all 11 starters on that side of the field, how would you grade Atlanta's defense? Give me a grade A, B, C, D, or F down in the comment section below. And while you're typing in an A, B, C, D, or F, whatever it may be, make sure to subscribe if you have not already. We just crossed over 12,000 subscribers, so thank you to all of our new subscribers. If you have not joined the channel yet, make sure you go ahead and do so. The next milestone we are trying to reach is 12,500, and we would greatly appreciate your help for reaching that goal. Now, like I said, I have not seen any of the guaranteed money, but he is not a roster lock, okay? He's a veteran player who I think has a good chance of making it, but when you think about Atlanta's cornerback room, they don't have a lot of great young pieces. They are waiting to see develop and grow into larger roles. So they can, for this year, fill out their cornerback room with a lot of cheap one-year pieces, like Mike Hughes, right? Like Tre Flowers now. Jeff Okudah is more or less a one-year piece because he's only got 1 year left on his contract. They don't have a lot of grassroots or, plants they are watering to see, hey, can this corner eventually turn into a CB2 alongside A.J. Terrell? The only guy that has a shot at that really long-term is Clark Phillips, and he hasn't played a snap yet, so I'm not going to get ahead of my skis. More on Trey Flowers, though. In his career, like I said, loads of experience, 262 tackles, 4 interceptions, 20 pass breakups, and 5 forced fumbles. So he's got a knack for getting his hand to the football with a little bit of a peanut punch right there. But 20 pass breakups in 6 seasons for a guy that has not been a routine starter every single season, those aren't bad numbers to find at this point in free agency. I mean, guys, it is May 8th right now. You're not getting a ton of great names out there anymore. Besides Unique Ngakoue, which I would like to see Atlanta add, but at this point, it doesn't seem like that's going to happen anyway. But Terry Fontenot has invested a lot in the secondary this offseason, right? His big splash free agent signing, Jesse Bates, and then he makes a trade for Jeff Okudah. He signs Mike Hughes in free agency. He also drafts Clark Phillips. So his bingo sheet is pretty much filled out at this point. You've got a signing, you've got a trade, you got a draft pick. Now we just need a waiver claim, and you got the middle spots free, and boom, bingo for Terry Fontenot. But he has clearly shown a lot of investment in this defense, right? He is not waiting back to see how some of the younger guys can develop. It was not a fun defense to watch last year, by and large. So he is not going to sit on his hands. He is making investments through the draft and now in free agency as well to turn around this defense. Is it going to be a one-season turnaround? No. It is not. You got some building blocks right now with Jesse Bates and A.J. Terrell. You hope Clark Phillips can kind of join that status, but he has not played a snap yet, so I'm not going to just, proclaim he is going to be a future member of this Atlanta, no-fly zone, if you will. Honestly, I think this signing is just Atlanta saw an opportunity to add solid depth to their cornerback room. They didn't do it in the draft outside of Clark Phillips, and they want to get the best guys on their roster, and Trey Flowers was sitting there, and they kind of got to weigh their options, right? Add a veteran, but at the risk and price of he's only going to be here for 1 year most likely, and we kind of stunt someone else's growth. Well, there's no one really growth needing to be stunt, right? There's no one in the works right now that I think, listen, 2023 could be a big breakout season for this guy. They don't really have that going in their cornerback room, in my opinion. So I've got no real issues with them adding a bunch of veteran guys for just one season and just kind of putting, not a Band-Aid on it, but not saying that, hey, this is going to be a one-season turnaround on our defense. They're going bit by bit, and they're adding some good pieces for this year, and hopefully next year they can target cornerback a little bit more if Jeff Okudah does not have a breakout season, or if Clark Phillips doesn't look like he's CB2 for the long term. Then maybe you address that spot earlier in the draft. So what do you guys think? Who should the Falcons sign next? Is it an edge rusher? Because they can't overdo it. There's no way you can overcook the edge rusher position in my opinion. Right? You just have to get more guys to get to after the quarterback, as simply put, right? I know that's extreme layman's terms, but Atlanta needs to hear that right now, because this was one of the most atrocious pass rushing units in the NFL last year, only bailed out by the Chicago Bears. And I'm not saying anything that's brand new, but it needs to be said over and over and over again. If we don't see improvement this year, we're going to know why, because Atlanta did an okay job, but they did not prioritize it in the draft. They waited until late third round to draft an edge rusher. And in free agency, they didn't get one of the marquee free agent edge rushers. Maybe Fontenot is going to look like a genius in a couple of years if some team overpays Frank Clark or Ngakoue and they don't look like they're the real deal. But for now, I'm definitely thinking if they finished 31st in sacks last year, they're kind of on pace to finish around the same spot. And that's a bit frustrating to not improve for one of your biggest needs. Okay, that is it for today's show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your day. And Tre Flowers, you are an Atlanta Falcon.